Are we filming? Okay, sorry to make y'all wait for this one, but quite frankly, there's just been a lot going on. I had a business trip in October shortly after the Super Mario Bros. 2 video went up. I am getting married in March. Wedding planning takes a lot. And the real reason that this video took as long as it did is because my hard drive crashed. I had recorded this bit with me and the camera. I had recorded my narrations. I had recorded a 100% playthrough of Super Mario Bros. 3. And then my external hard drive, where I keep all my video files, just crashed. And I lost everything for this video. I didn't lose the files for anything else. It was just this video that I lost. So that's why this video took so long. I had to do a second playthrough, and I decided to do it 100% once again. So I had to do a second playthrough, and I had to get up here in front of the camera and talk again. I had to sit down in front of the microphone and talk again. I basically had to start all over. And I was already taking long enough with it as it is because, again, I had a business trip, and I may or may not have been playing a lot of Pokemon Legends EA instead of maybe editing this video like I should have. I'm sorry, it's really good. Pokemon fan, please understand. But okay, that's enough about that. Why do you say we just get into the video proper, okay?
Mario! 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 Mario!
He's back. All you had to do was ask. Super Mario Bros. 3 from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
Anyway, here we are with the last game to cap off this Mario Marathon, Super Mario Bros. 3. Often considered by many to be one of the greatest games on the NES, and one of the best Super Mario Bros. Games of all time. Now, I obviously can't really speak to what it was like waiting for this game back in the day, but I think you can get a pretty good idea just by looking at some of the marketing. From what I've heard, the movie The Wizard is a pretty forgettable film, but people still talk about it because that's how they formally announced Super Mario Bros. 3 here in the United States.
So I give you Super Mario Brothers 3!
Those were certainly different times, weren't they? Something tells me a marketing strategy like that wouldn't exactly work well today. The development of Super Mario Bros. 3 began shortly after the release of Lost Levels on the Famicom Disk System. Shigeru Miyamoto returns once again as the director for this game, and had a much larger team this go around. During development, Miyamoto worked closely with the team and encouraged everyone openly sharing ideas, as he thought that new and innovative gameplay would be the key to making a successful game. That sounds familiar. And yeah, it's pretty clear that this game is just jam-packed with all kinds of ideas as soon as you boot the game up. You've got the world map, distinct level tropes, a cavalcade of brand new characters, enemies, power-ups, and gameplay mechanics, all things we'll cover here in due time, but for an NES game, there's a lot going on here. Super Mario Bros. 3 would see release in Japan in 1988 and 1990 for the United States. It's kind of weird to think that just as we were getting Super Mario Bros. 2, Japan already had Super Mario Bros. 3. I wonder how many American gamers were aware of that at the time. Like, did anybody actually go out of their way to import a Famicom and a Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 3 to play it early? I also have to imagine that Super Mario Bros. 3 was intended to release sooner than it actually did, but was delayed a little bit due to a chip shortage in the United States. I'm sure the wait must have been agonizing for Mario fans. As for me, on the other hand, for the fourth time this marathon, I would first play Super Mario Bros. 3 thanks to, say it with me, the Wii's Virtual Console. I enjoyed a lot of Nintendo's greatest hits thanks to this service, and the game I played the absolute most off of it? Super Metroid, hot damn. But a close runner-up to that was Super Mario Bros. 3. I know I mentioned it in previous videos, but while I never beat the NES Mario games during that time, I sure did play them a lot, and Super Mario Bros. 3 was my absolute favorite of them. I had to have gone through the first 3 or 4 worlds time and time again. However, that was about 15 years ago, and I've really only ever revisited Super Mario Bros. 3 on occasion, so do I still feel the same way about it today? This is the first time I've beat the game for this review, so let's jump in and find out. As far as the story goes, we're sort of back to basics here. Bowser and his 7 kids, the Koopalings, have conquered 7 nearby kingdoms and have transformed their respective kings into animals using the magic wands that were stolen from said kings. Once Princess Peach hears of this, she sends Mario and Luigi to rescue them. As Mario and Luigi, it's up to you to travel through the 7 kingdoms to rescue the kings, and then save Princess Peach in the 8th world after that. Oh, yeah, spoiler warning, I guess, but after World 7, Bowser kidnaps Princess Peach, and you have to rescue her. But, I mean, come on, of course he did. Each kingdom has their own distinct theme that'll dictate many of the level tropes you'll face for that world, and they really run with that in this game. World 1 is your standard grassland. Platforming here is pretty simple and is a great way to get players familiar with the game. World 2 has a desert theme. It's not too dissimilar to World 2 and Super Mario Bros. 2 with the quicksand and pyramids, just with the sand shoveling removed, thank God. Oh, and the sun is sentient and trying to kill Mario. You know, whatever. Another Sunday for our favorite Italian plumber, I'm sure. World 3 is all about water levels. Sometimes you're swimming below the surface, other times you're platforming above the water. It's not all bad, just be careful around Big Bertha. This fuck-ass fish can swallow Mario whole. Even if you have a power-up, you'll lose a life if that happens, so watch out. You can also rack up a ton of lives and power-ups here if you can reach the boat in the world map. I had a good amount of trouble with this world on my first playthrough, but it wasn't so bad the second time around. World 4 is Giant Land, one of my favorite worlds in the game. The gimmick here is that everything is big. That's it. There really isn't much to say. Larger enemies and bricks means easier platforming, so it's really not all that challenging, but it is charming and the levels are fun. World 5 takes place up in the sky, meaning you've got a lot of bottomless pits to jump over. Honestly, in my opinion, this is one of the hardest worlds in the game, and was a bit of a shock coming off of World 4 being fairly easy. I do like how you start World 5 on the ground and get to the sky by climbing up this tower level. You can even see where you are on the ground below in the world map. I love that little detail. World 6 is the ice world. Not much to say here. You got ice physics and on occasion can melt ice blocks with the fire flower, but it won't take long to complete despite being one of the longest worlds in the game. World 7 is Pipeland. The gimmick here? Warp pipes. Warp pipes everywhere. It can be a bit tricky to navigate sometimes. You got enemies coming out of pipes and maze levels where you have to enter the right pipe to continue, but overall it's a fun time. World 8 is the final world, and as such, everything here wants you dead. Tanks, battleships, hand traps, airships, lava, the whole 9 yards. Bowser really went all out here, and it makes for a tense endgame. Okay, so Super Mario Bros. 3 adds a ton of new features to the standard 2D platforming. First, and probably most prominently, is the world map. After completing a level, you'll be taken back to the world map where you can either proceed into the next level, play a minigame, challenge roaming enemies, or travel to other parts of the map using a warp pipe. Gone are the days of sequentially tackling every level in the game to reach the end of the world. In Super Mario Bros. 3, the world map will often have branching paths with different levels, allowing you to skip some stages to complete the world if you so choose. Another thing you might notice thanks to the world map is that worlds are much larger than they were in the previous 2 games. In the original Super Mario Bros. And in Lost Levels, each world consisted of 4 levels each. In Super Mario Bros. 2, that was shortened to 3. In this game, worlds can have upwards of 14 different levels. God damn, that's a lot to chew on for an NES game, but you're definitely getting good bang for your buck here. Why don't we go ahead and break down some of the new power-ups and mechanics introduced in this game. Super Mario Bros. 3 has a ton of new power-ups, and honestly, these all might be some of my favorite in the series' history. Of course, we see the return of the Super Mushroom, the Fire Flower, and the Starman, but now there's also the Super Leaf. Grabbing this will transform Mario into Raccoon Mario. With this power-up, Mario can perform a tail swipe that can knock out bricks and enemies. It's a bit short-ranged and honestly not as reliable as just jumping on enemies, but you can use your tail to hover in the air slightly, and if you're running at full speed and jump, you'll be able to temporarily fly. This is seriously awesome and can absolutely break some levels in half. Next is the Frog Suit. It's a bit awkward to use on land as Mario's default movement becomes a hop, but it can make water levels a little easier. There aren't a ton of water stages in the game, but if you come across one and have a frog suit in your inventory, then go nuts. You'll swim much faster and have much more precise movement. It makes water levels way more fun in all honesty. Hell, I even get a kick out of trying to complete regular stages with it. It's fun to see how well you can maneuver on land. On occasion, you may come across the P-Wing power-up. It's identical to the Super Leaf, except that when using it, you'll always be considered running at full speed, which means unlimited flight. The P-Wing is pretty rare, and after beating a level with it, you revert back to Raccoon Mario, so be sure to save these for levels that are giving you a lot of trouble. My absolute favorite power-ups are the secret power-ups, the Tanuki suit and the Hammer Brothers suit. The Tanuki suit honestly isn't really that different from the Super Leaf. It behaves the same, but now has the ability to transform into a statue that's immune to enemies. The Hammer Brothers suit, on the other hand, is just awesome. You get to throw hammers, and crouching allows you to block certain projectiles. The Hammer Brothers suit can defeat enemies that the Fire Flower could only dream of defeating, which makes it incredibly useful. This is weirdly cathartic after all the shit Hammer Brothers gave me in the previous games. Try to hang on to these two power-ups when you can, as they are not very common at all. Admittedly, the power-ups being so fun to use in this game makes losing them all the more frustrating, especially for the Hammer Brother and Tanuki suit, but regardless, we're dealing with a pretty versatile Mario here. The cherry on top of all this is that you now have an inventory where you can carry extra power-ups you earn from minigames. That way, as long as you're stocked up on a few power-ups, you can go into a level prepared. This is a seriously awesome feature, and one that I'm glad has returned in future 2D Mario games. There are even items you can use on the world map to make traversing it a little easier. Hammers to break rocks, a cloud to skip levels, and a music box to put wandering enemies to sleep. Yeah, you've got a ton of different options when it comes to progressing in the game, so take advantage of that when you can. Bowser's forces have also seen quite the upgrade. There are 55 different enemies in this game, not counting any boss fights. Granted, that's including a couple of variations of the same enemy here and there, but god damn, that's still a lot of enemies. All of Bowser's minions from Super Mario Bros. Return, but all of those unique and weird enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2 are nowhere to be seen. New enemies include Spike, Chain Chomps, Fire Chomps, Boos, Dry Bones, Thwomps, I'm just scratching the surface here, and possibly my least favorite of the bunch, Big Bertha. Fuck-ass fish. Anyway, Super Mario Bros. 3 will be constantly throwing something new at you, both obstacle and enemy, so keep on your toes. Oh yeah, there's a lot more going on in the levels in this game. There are secrets all over the place if you know where to look that can reward you with rare items. You can now slide down slopes. Whee! Man, that's fun. Some levels have the P-switch that, when activated, temporarily turns all bricks into coins and vice versa. It can even make certain doorways appear, which also makes for far more intricate, albeit still annoying, maze levels. You also have stages taking place in fortresses and airships, which are far more treacherous to play through than your standard level. There's also the introduction of auto-scrolling levels. In these, the screen is constantly moving forward and you have to keep up. These are usually accompanied by a bottomless pit that you have to avoid falling into for the entirety of the stage. I have a love-hate relationship with auto-scrollers in this game. I enjoy having to make quick, yet careful jumps to keep up with the level, but there are other times where I'm just waiting for the auto-scroller to move along so I actually have something to jump on. Super Mario Bros. 3 is the introduction point for all of these mechanics, and these are things that we'd see in nearly every 2D Mario game moving forward. Of course, we can't forget to mention the Koopalings as well. Once you reach the castle at the end of each world, you'll be tasked with boarding the airship the Koopalings escaped to and retrieve the magical rod that they stole. Bowser's children serve as the major boss fights at the end of each world. Larry, Morton, Wendy-O Koopa, Iggy, Roy, Lemmy, and Ludwig von Koopa. They all bring something a little different to the table, which is nice. I think Lemmy is my favorite. His projectile being a bouncy ball makes for a much more unique and interesting boss fight. The Koopalings aren't too difficult. Just pop them on the head 3 times while avoiding their projectiles. Bada boom, bada bing, you save the king. That's the basic setup of the game, but let's get a little more into the nitty-gritty here, shall we? Let's talk control and level design here. If you felt that Super Mario Bros. And Lost Levels was a little too stiff, or maybe that Super Mario Bros. 2 was a little too floaty, you may be able to breathe a little easier with Super Mario Bros. 3. While I still don't think it's as tight or as fluid as some of the later 2D Mario games, running and jumping still comes pretty naturally, at least it did for me. But I bring this up for 2 reasons. A, because how it feels to control a character in a platformer is a very important thing, and B, I just want to preface that the control has nothing to do with any gripes I have about the level design, and unfortunately I do have a few gripes. Super Mario Bros. 3 has 90 total levels to play through, and I will say that most of them are quite good, but there are a few that stand out and frustrate the living hell out of me. Let's start with the airship levels at the end of each world. These are auto-scrollers complete with cannons firing at you from every direction. Now for the most part, I actually enjoy these levels, but what I find annoying about them is the way the camera moves. Or maybe it's the stage itself? Look, whatever it is, there's this weird bobbing motion going on with the camera or the level terrain that alters the trajectory the projectiles take, or worse, obscure the correct way to go. Like, look at this. I thought this pathway had been cut off, but no, the floor just dipped below the screen while the camera was moving. It's a bit misleading. Stages in the later half of the game start to regress in quality big time. The best way I can describe this is that some of these levels genuinely feel like Mario Maker levels, and just to be clear, that's not a compliment. Like 7-7, for example. The gimmick here is that the entire level is covered in munchers, an enemy that is immune to everything. You have to change Starman invincibility for the entire level, and your movement has to be perfect, otherwise you won't make it to the next block in time, meaning you're either down a life or having to use the invincibility frames from losing your power-up. World 8 is full of shit like that, by the way. My god, World 8. I get that it's the final world and that it should be the most difficult, but this world is just obnoxious. Look at this. This is the first level in World 8. It's an auto-scroller through a line of tanks. Do you see the problem here? All of the projectiles are black and blend into the background. What on earth were they fucking thinking here, man? I'm not kidding. When I got to this level, I was slack-jawed by this design choice. This is just stupid. And this is just the first level. It doesn't get much better. Enemies are just shotgun blasted all over the place, enemy placement is hella awkward to get around, and there are a few gotcha moments that lead to death if you don't know about them. Of course, the frustrations I'm venting with World 8 here are from my first playthrough. As you can see here, for my second playthrough, I decided to save all my P-Wings for World 8, which makes all of these levels a complete joke. I recommend you do as well if you can. Save yourself the frustration. Now, unlike Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3 thankfully goes back to unlimited continues. When you use a continue, you're sent back to the beginning of the world you died in, and all the levels reopen and have to be completed again. Now that may sound brutal, considering that worlds are more than 4 levels in this game, but any shortcuts that opened after completing a fortress remain open, meaning you can get back to where you were relatively quickly. Though I'm now seriously beginning to question why this game just doesn't have a save feature. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a larger ask of time investment to complete in one sitting over the last 2 games, so it just seems odd to me that they wouldn't include something like that. Thankfully, it's not all that bad, because every level in this game is pretty short, but even still, you're in it for the long haul if you're looking to beat it in one sitting. I guess it's not that bad, especially because you have the return of the warp zone to get back to where you were, but still. My playthrough clocked in at about 5 hours, and granted, that was me going for 100%, but still. I guess that's a moot point these days, though. After all, I'm sure most people playing Super Mario Bros. 3 today are likely playing it on a platform with save states or something like that. I mean, that's what I did. I played it on the NES Mini, despite owning a physical copy of the game for NES. Okay. I know I just threw a lot of frustrations out there, but let me say that everything I've just complained about makes up less than 5% of the game, and honestly really only applies to my first playthrough. For a game with 90 levels, that's still a pretty damn good batting average of levels that I find fun and well-designed versus the ones that frustrated me. But I bring this up because, small portion of the game or not, it was still something that soured the experience for me. I genuinely walked away from some recording sessions pretty unhappy with what I just played. I would like to note that many of these gripes stem primarily from my first playthrough. Having to play the game a second time after losing my files for this video, I had a much smoother experience and struggled less on levels that gave me a hard time. Obviously that can be chalked up to being much more familiar with the game, but I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Much like my assertion with the original Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3 is a game that gets more fun the more you play it. I still stand by my criticisms of World 8, though. Saved all my P-Wings for the end of the game for a reason, after all. Anyway, a lot of this being stacked at the end of the game is unfortunate, because it makes the end game a frustrating slog for me instead of an epic finale. At least Bowser's Castle isn't so bad. You even have a pretty interesting boss fight with the King of Koopas at the end of the game, where defeating him is just a matter of dodging his attacks long enough for him to fall through the floor. And with that, we've rescued Princess Peach, and completed Super Mario Bros. 3. Does anyone else find it odd that they didn't bother updating Peach's sprite from Super Mario Bros. 2? Oh, I guess I should talk about that, huh? I think it's pretty obvious already, but Super Mario Bros. 3 is an impressive leap in the graphics department from Super Mario Bros. 2. This game has a charming and timeless look to it that I just can't get enough of. I mean, seriously, this has to be one of the most graphically impressive games on the NES. Sprites are very expressive, stages are colorful, and there are little details here that just make this game nice to look at. And it all does this without really creating much slowdown. I'm sure there's a little bit of it here and there, but still, I find that pretty commendable. Unsurprisingly, this praise also applies to the soundtrack. Just like the game itself, there's a lot more in the soundtrack compared to the previous two games. There are several stage themes, and every world map even has its own song. Let's see, which one should I highlight here? This one is probably one y'all weren't expecting, but no kidding, the song that plays in the castle throne rooms might actually be my favorite track in the game. I don't know why, I just love how it sounds, despite being something you'll likely skip right past. And well, that's Super Mario Bros. 3, and the end of our adventures with Mario on the NES. Okay, except for a couple of spin-off games, but you know what I mean. 35 years later, this game is honestly impressive. The fact that it has so many different ideas and so much content packed into one 8-bit NES game is frankly hard to believe, even today. The sheer innovation that drives this game is a sight to behold, and is the reason a lot of people such as myself are fans of Mario and Nintendo in general. I don't think this game has aged as gracefully as many others seem to think, but that aside, if you're only going to play one game from Mario's days on the NES, make it this one. Like I said before, Super Mario Bros. 3 lays an absurd amount of groundwork that we would go on to see in all future 2D Mario games moving forward. So if you're a fan of the newer 2D games, then I'd implore you to play Super Mario Bros. 3 and see the origins of these mechanics that keep us coming back for more. Something tells me you'll have a good time. And if you do, once again, Super Mario Bros. 3 is available in the Nintendo Switch Online service if you decide you want to play it for yourself. You even have access to the All-Stars port or the Super Mario Bros. Advance version if you're looking for something a little bit more modern. Now, I haven't played those versions myself, so I'll save my thoughts on those for another time. That'll do it for our Mario Marathon for now. I had a great time putting these videos together, but that's no surprise there, I guess. It's hard not to have a good time when playing a Mario game. Okay, well, Lost Levels is the exception, not the rule. Now, as for what's next for me, I think I've kept you Pokemon fans waiting long enough. Next up for me is the Gen 4 Ribbon Master video, but that doesn't mean we're done with reviews in general. No, I actually want to keep doing this series. I had a lot of fun putting these videos together, so let me know in the comments below what kind of games you'd like to see me cover. As you can see, I have no shortage of games to pick from, but I'm kind of drawing a blank on where to go with it. Should I play more of my favorites, like Mega Man and Metroid, or maybe use this as an excuse to try something I've never played before, like Earthbound or Pikmin? We've got a lot of options for sure, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Well, in the meantime, happy 40th anniversary, Super Mario. Thanks for all the memories, and I'm looking forward to more in the future. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.